What if I told you that a power company that sells itself as the UK's largest source of renewable energy is actually fueling environmental racism in the US? It's called Drax, and it burns wood grown in the US to produce electricity here in the UK. At Unearthed, we uncovered the ways in which Drax has polluted the air of Black communities in America's Deep South.
I'm living in fear because I can't breathe. And if you can't breathe, you can't live. So I'm not scared to tell nobody that I'm having difficulties breathing.
We've also found evidence that Drax has repeatedly breached US clean air rules, risking the health of the communities who live near its wood pellet mills.
Even for the wood pellet industry, this seems like a high number of violations, and a lot of violations that are due to Drax not doing what they should do.
My message to the UK government is that they should not be subsidizing environmental racism in the Southeast US.
We're about to map out the reality of what is happening behind the scenes of this major British biomass company.
When I look into the community in Gloucester, Mississippi, and I see what they are suffering from, I cannot land on anything other than evil. It has to be evil that would drive you to put a biomass plant on top of a community and force them to take it.
In the southern US is a small town called Gloucester in Mississippi. Further in is a trailer park community called Blackman Hole, and stationed right next to it is a wood pellet plant called Amite that opened for business in 2014 and was soon releasing illegal levels of toxic pollutants into the air of this predominantly Black community. But the owners of this plant live a long way away from Gloucester, Mississippi. Drax, this huge biomass energy firm, calls itself the UK's largest source of renewable energy and gets millions from the UK government and invests big in its clean image.
At Drax, we're committed to a zero-carbon, lower-cost energy future. And now we're the largest decarbonization project in Europe.
But what does biomass even mean? Biomass involves cutting down trees and compressing them into wood pellets, which are then burnt for electricity. But many aren't aware of the toxic emissions associated with the wood pellet making industry, or the communities affected by it. According to our findings, half of Drax plants are located in predominantly Black areas in the US. Critics say that the opening of these plants has increased air pollution and noise pollution and also reduced biodiversity.
We support healthy forests and biodiversity. The biomass that we use is renewable because the forests are growing and continue to capture more carbon than we emit from the power station.
But let's begin in Gloucester, where Drax arrived back in 2014.
There was a lot of buzz happening in the town, a lot of excitement, and rightfully so. This is why there was a high level of excitement. This is a new opportunity. And unbeknownst to us, even during this time, high levels of toxins were being emitted into the air.
In 2020, the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, MDEQ, fined this plant $2.5 million for exceeding legal limits on toxic chemicals called volatile organic compounds, VOCs for short, since 2016. Each year, the plant was releasing 3 times more than was legally permitted.
VOCs can be dangerous at any level. If you were to be exposed to VOCs, you would notice symptoms like dizziness, nausea, eye irritation, and headache. What we really know about VOCs, what we know to be true, is that they are cancer causing. And that's a massive concern to these areas that we call sacrifice zones, where they're constantly coming in contact with these exposures.
We're suffering. Sometimes the air is, good, but the majority of the time, it's hard to breathe. We have a lot of people around here that's starting to have respiratory problems, you know, and then we don't know what effect down the road this is going to have on the children.
My name is Jasmine Jenkins. I've been living in Gloucester for 7 years now. This is my house right here. Me and my kids and my husband live here. This is the fence that's between us, and that is Drax biomass over there. The air pollution in Gloucester is very serious. Like right now, me and all 3 of my kids suffer from allergies real bad. My husband has to wash our cars every 2 weeks because of the particles and stuff on it, dust and stuff. Once my kids older, will they be down bad in health? Will they have asthma, allergies problem all their life? Like, how would they be once they grow up?
Where did the $2.5 million go? That's a $2.5 million question.
That fine should have came to our community. A community that has nothing, and you take $2.5 million and you put it wherever when you have a community that's in need.
We've looked at all kinds of non-compliance in the wood pellet industry across all 10 states in the South where they are. And there's been a ton of non-compliance, but what stood out for me with Drax, they supplied the state of Mississippi with what is the clearest example of I can't prove fraudulent, but extremely dubious emissions testing in order to avoid doing the right thing. And, you know, we don't have the data to prove that it was intentional, but even if it wasn't intentional, it was incredibly reckless, because we now know once the real tests were done, their emissions were far higher than they were claiming.
But we've discovered that amide is not the only US plant where Drax has been releasing illegal levels of VOCs into poor and predominantly Black communities. In August this year, Drax agreed to pay $1.6 million apiece for breaches of environmental rules at its Louisiana pellet plants, Morehouse, and LaSalle Bioenergy. That's a total of $3.2 million for a pattern of illegal emissions on a similar scale to that seen in Mississippi. But that's not all. It follows an earlier $20,000 settlement that Drax reached with Louisiana regulators in 2020 for a string of other environmental violations at its Morehouse plant.
All 3 of their plants were not only emitting hundreds of tons of illegal VOCs every year they were operating, but we now know from these notice of penalties that they were committing a lot of other important violations that were leading to air pollution controls not working within their intended range, which could emit all kinds of higher levels of emissions.
Remarkably, Drax doesn't actually have to publish up-to-date air pollution data on its plants, but the latest data it published for 2021 shows that in that year, Drax was still breaching limits at least one of those plants. Despite these environmental breaches, Drax is classified as a green energy company in the UK, and as a result, it receives the equivalent of £2 million a day in UK government subsidies.
Hi, Miss Camilla. How are you? I'm doing these elbows. How you doing?
I'm doing
I
good.
want you to say that again. Those 3 words.
I can't breathe.
Okay.
There it is.
And Black Lives Matter. We have different types of assaults against our health, different sorts of brutality. So there are more ways to choke Black lives than putting a knee to the neck.
It's not all about me. It's about the world and its community and the people that's in this community and the kids and elderly. Can't sit back and just assume toxic air and think that it's okay. You gotta tell somebody, you gotta let them know we need help.